There's a specific kind of exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix. You see it in people who look calm on the outside, but internally, their mind never stops moving. They replay tiny moments from conversations days later, the look on someone's face, the pause before a reply, the message they almost sent but deleted. And sometimes the most painful part isn't what happened. It's the endless loop of what could have happened differently. At 2 a.m., while the world goes quiet, their brain becomes louder. Every possibility opens at once. Every memory suddenly feels unfinished. Every decision becomes something to re-examine. Psychologically, most people assume overthinking comes from weakness or insecurity. But that's rarely the full story. Because some of the people who think the most are also the people who feel the deepest. The ones who notice small emotional shifts no one else sees. The ones who read the room before they speak. The ones who can sense tension from a single sentence change in someone's voice. And over time, that level of awareness becomes exhausting. The strange thing is, overthinkers usually don't look overwhelmed from the outside. They still show up. They still smile at the right moments. They still respond with, "I'm fine," even when their mind feels crowded. But internally, the brain rarely rests. Most people don't realize this, but the human mind was never designed to process endless uncertainty without fatigue. And yet, overthinkers spend years trying to mentally prepare for every possible outcome before life even happens. The mind begins to believe that if it can just think enough, predict enough, analyze enough, maybe it can prevent pain before it arrives. So it keeps scanning, constantly. Psychologically, this often starts much earlier than people think. Many chronic overthinkers grew up in environments where emotional safety felt unpredictable, not always traumatic in obvious ways. Sometimes it was subtle. A parent whose mood changed without warning. A household where mistakes felt emotionally expensive. A childhood where being careful became the safest version of yourself. And slowly the nervous system adapts. The brain learns to stay alert, to read people quickly, to anticipate reactions before they happen, to mentally rehearse situations over and over in an attempt to stay emotionally protected. What looks like overthinking in adulthood is often an old survival pattern that never fully turned off. This is why many people who think too much also struggle to relax even when nothing is wrong. Silence doesn't always feel peaceful to them. Sometimes silence feels unfamiliar, so the brain fills the empty space with thought. You see this late at night more than anywhere else? Someone lies in bed scrolling endlessly through their phone, not because they're entertained, but because stillness forces them to hear their own thoughts more clearly. And once the mind starts moving, it's hard to stop. One thought becomes 5. 5 become 20. A simple memory becomes an emotional investigation. Why did they say it like that? Did I sound stupid? What if I handled that differently? What if something goes wrong tomorrow? The exhausting part is that the brain treats all of it like unfinished business. Psychologically, the mind confuses thinking with control. It feels productive. It feels protective. But most of the time it only creates more mental noise. And this is where many people quietly begin to lose themselves. Because overthinking doesn't only drain energy, it slowly disconnects people from the present moment. They stop fully experiencing life because they're too busy analyzing it while it's happening. Even in happy moments, part of the brain is still observing, still calculating, still preparing for what could go wrong later. That's why some overthinkers struggle to enjoy peace when they finally have it. Their nervous system has spent so long expecting emotional danger that calmness almost feels suspicious. And the strangest part is, most people around them never notice this internal battle. They only see someone who's quiet, thoughtful, reserved, maybe even emotionally strong. But internally, that person may be carrying years of mental fatigue nobody can see. Psychologically, people who think too much often become emotionally intelligent very early in life. Not because they wanted to, but because they had to become hyper-aware of emotions around them. They notice energy shifts quickly. They remember small details. They sense discomfort in conversations before words are even spoken. This is why many overthinkers become deeply empathetic people. Their brain is constantly trying to understand what others feel. But empathy without emotional boundaries becomes heavy. Eventually, they begin carrying emotions that were never theirs to hold. And over time, the mind starts to blur the line between awareness and responsibility. They feel responsible for fixing tension, responsible for making people comfortable, responsible for preventing disappointment. So they think more, analyze more, worry more, until even small decisions become mentally exhausting. Something as simple as sending a message can turn into 10 minutes of rewriting. Something as normal as a delayed reply suddenly feels personal. A crowded room becomes emotionally draining because the brain keeps absorbing every interaction at once. And this is why many overthinkers secretly feel tired around people, even people they love. Not because they dislike them, but because their mind never fully stops processing. Most people don't realize how exhausting self-awareness can become when it turns excessive. At first, reflection helps people grow, but eventually, too much reflection becomes emotional paralysis. The mind keeps searching for certainty that doesn't exist, and life rarely gives complete certainty. That's the painful contradiction overthinkers live with. They want clarity before they relax, but clarity almost never arrives all at once. So the brain stays active, waiting for a sense of control that never fully comes. Psychologically, healing from overthinking usually doesn't happen by thinking better. That's what surprises many people, because overthinking itself is not really a logic problem. It's often a nervous system problem, a mind that learned hypervigilance for too long, a body that forgot what emotional safety feels like. This is why many therapists focus less on stopping thoughts and more on changing the relationship with them. Instead of fighting every thought, the goal becomes learning to observe thoughts without immediately believing them. That small shift changes everything. The thought changes from, "Something bad is going to happen," to, "My mind is searching for danger right now." One feels like reality. The other creates space, and space is important, because healing usually begins the moment a person realizes they do not have to attend every thought their mind produces. Not every fear is intuition. Not every emotion is a warning. Not every uncomfortable silence means rejection. Sometimes the brain is simply continuing an old survival habit long after the danger has passed. And maybe that's the hidden truth behind people who think too much. They are not broken minds. They are often deeply aware minds that became stuck in protection mode for too long. People who spent years trying to emotionally prepare for life before fully living it. But eventually something changes. A person gets tired of carrying the constant noise, tired of mentally rehearsing every future, tired of searching for certainty in places where certainty never existed. And slowly, they begin learning something their nervous system never understood before. Peace does not come from finally controlling everything. It comes from realizing you were never supposed to. And when that realization finally settles in, the mind becomes quieter. Not perfect, not empty, just quieter, enough to enjoy small moments again, enough to sit in silence without needing to escape it, enough to stop treating every thought like an emergency. And for someone who has spent most of their life mentally running, that kind of quiet feels almost unfamiliar at first. But over time it begins to feel like home.